Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name's Beth Cohen, and today we'll be celebrating the 100-year anniversary of Barcelona's metro. On the 30th of December 1924, the first section of our city metro was inaugurated, running between Plaça Catalunya and Lesseps. Thousands of Barcelona residents continued to commute daily along this section of what is now Line 3, perhaps unaware that they're travelling through tunnels with 100 years of history. As the metro celebrates its centenary, we explore its origins and discover how our main city transport system continues to stay on track in a modern and ever-changing world. Joining me in the studio today is Cillian Shields. Hello, Cillian.
Hey, Beth. How's it going?
Good, thanks. It's great to see you.
Good to be here talking about a fun topic.
Now, the metro is a very handy way of getting around, and I'm sure many of our listeners are familiar with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how could you come to Barcelona and not be at least familiar with it? I absolutely love the metro. I think it's so useful to get around. And especially for me, coming from Dublin, where the public transport options are nowhere near as good. I'm a huge fan of the Barcelona metro.
Okay, so give me the facts.
The facts. Well, Barcelona Metro has 125 kilometres of underground rail network. It's got 167 stations, and that includes the funicular. And it's got 8 different lines, but that does not include the FGC lines.
Okay, wait a minute, because we have 2 different types of line operated by 2 different companies. What is the difference?
Yes, exactly. It's a good question, and one that caused me a lot of confusion in my first couple of years after moving here. Anyone who's gotten the underground might have seen that there's sort of 2 different networks. They are owned and operated by 2 separate companies. The one that is traditionally considered the Barcelona Metro is operated by TMB, which is Transports Metropolitans de Barcelona, and that's a sort of public-private company involving local councils as well in Barcelona and the surrounding area. Meanwhile, the FGC is a Catalan government venture started in 1979, and the lines are not connected. I mean, in some of the big stations like Plaça Catalunya, Plaça España, they do connect, but they're on very different parts of the station, shall we say. Mm-hmm. And adding to the confusion, if you look at the number routes of all the different lines, you've got L12345, part of the core Barcelona Metro, and then L6, 7 and 8 is part of the FGC, the other one. 9, 10, 11, back to the TMB, Barcelona Metro, and then line 12, the FGC. So it's very difficult to get your head around. It's very easy to get them mixed up.
Really confusing, and I know I've certainly got on the wrong line before now, or bought a ticket, walked into the station and gone, oh, wait a minute, it's not here.
That's happened to me too, yeah. Thankfully, they do have integrated tickets available, which you can also use for the bus or the tram.
Unless you've bought a single, in which case you just have to ask nicely to be let out and you feel a bit stupid.
That's also the case.
Now, we're talking about this today because the metro is turning 100 years old. Are they going to do anything to celebrate their centenary?
Yes, they are, of course. TMB, the company that operates it, announced that they're going to organise visits to ghost stations and some control centres, which are places not normally available to the public at all. On top of that, they're also going to organise at some point next year a 5-kilometre race along the metro tracks underground and a 74-metre time trial at the La Teixonera station. And on top of that, they're going to also open an exhibition on old trains that are not in use anymore.
That sounds like really good fun. Now, the metro is becoming increasingly popular as the city grows, right?
Yes, absolutely. 2023 saw, once again, record passenger figures. It was up 18% compared to 2022, with a total of 440 million passengers throughout the entire year. We only have full year figures for 2023 at the moment, but we're expecting another increase again for 2024, which we won't know until early next year.
So tell me a bit about the Barcelona Metro history.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, the first line was inaugurated in December 1924. At that point, there were only 4 stations open at the time, Catalunya, Aragó, which is now Passeig de Gràcia, Diagonal and Lesseps. And this whole stretch was not even 3 kilometres long, but soon afterwards, Fontana metro station opened, the next year Liceu, further south on La Rambla. But it's also a fun fact, it took 12 years for construction to get going. In 1912 is when the project was first greenlit, but at that time it couldn't get funding. And then pretty shortly afterwards, the First World War complicated global finances until the first bricks were finally laid in the early 1920s.
So, Cillian, what are the busiest lines?
Yeah, this was quite an interesting one. The L1, the red line, maybe no surprise to listeners, but that one is the one that sees the most passengers, which in 2023 saw 116 million trips taken. The second most busiest is the L5, the blue line. It might not surprise anybody to hear that the L11, the shortest line, is the one that had the fewest trips, with only 1.2 million in all of 2023.
And which are the busiest stations?
This was another surprise for me. In 2023, Diagonal had 10 million passengers through it, and that was the busiest, followed by España and Catalunya with 9.7 and 9.3 million.
And I believe there was a very bad accident in the 1970s, wasn't there?
Yes, probably the darkest night for the Barcelona Metro. In October 1975, at the Virrey Amat station, that was the scene of the most serious accident in the history of the Barcelona Metro. 2 trains collided, resulting in the death of 2 people and more than 200 injured passengers, around 30 of whom were quite seriously injured. The accident happened when a train that had left the station going towards Vilapicina suddenly reversed for unknown reasons and collided with another train that was entering the station behind it. The investigation afterwards pointed to multiple failures in the brake systems of the train, causing the accident, which was probably made worse by the fact that as it reversed especially because it was on a slope, maybe increasing the speed and therefore increasing the impact of the crash.
Okay, so perhaps the power failed or the brakes failed, it just rolled back down the hill into the oncoming train.
Precisely. And this was actually the second most deadly metro accident in the history of Spanish public transport, with the most deadly happening in Valencia in 2006.
Barcelona Metro has a long and fascinating history, and to find out more about the history of some of Barcelona's most iconic stations, Cillian spoke to Marta Torres Muñoz. She's the author of the book Barcelona Metro a Metro, un viatge històric. Let's hear how they got on.
Marta got the idea for the book while commuting on the metro about 20 years ago. Without a mobile phone to distract her, she would look out the window at the stations and wonder about their history and where the station names came from. She began to investigate and compiled her information into a book, first published in 2009, and in an interview with Catalan News, Marta shared some of her stories.
Behind every word there is a story, no? Like for example, Clot. It was a place that in Middle Age was called Clotum Melis, and it was a clot. It means like a hole, and it was an area they used to do honey. So it was the honey for the city. They did it there. So it was a special place for bees and these kind of things. I never thought about it. I could not imagine this. Or, for example, Arc del Triomf was built for the entrance of the Barcelona Universal Exposition in 1888. And it was for the entrance, like the door. They made many proposals for many architects in competition for this exhibition.
And Barcelona even has its own special connection with the Suez Canal.
Lesseps, it's dedicated to Ferdinand of Lesseps. He was a French consul in the city around 1845. His house was in this square. That's why they put the name to the square and the name to the metro station. And he was the one who got to do the construction of the Suez Canal between the Mediterranean and the Red Sea.
The Catalan word gorg means little waterfall, so I was curious to ask Marta about the origin of the name of this station located in Badalona.
Una gorga is like a little waterfall. So in the past, in the El Río Besós, there is the river Besós, it was on this area making gorgs. It was a little gorgs, little waterfalls in this area. It's curious that, for example, in Barcelona, there is a metro stations of places that this doesn't exist anymore. Like, for example, Can Serra, it's the name of the farmhouse that doesn't exist anymore. But the metro station is still having this name. Maybe in the future they will change, I don't know. Or Fontana in Gracia, everybody knows. It's dedicated to a fountain where the people of the city used to go there and drink because it was a nice water, and it was in the middle of a park.
On the public transport in Barcelona, one can't help but notice a strong influence of Catholicism.
In Barcelona, there's still a lot of Catholic weight here in the city because for many years it's been Franco here. The name of the saints is still on many stations. For example, there is Santa Coloma, San Andreu, San Antoni, San Martí, San Roc, San Ildefons, and also other names that, like Trinitat, it's also remembering to the convent of to a church. And Congress also. Congress, it was in the Franco time in 1952. They made the Congress, but international. So more than 80 countries came here and they did this Congress, big Catholic Congress. So that's the name of the station because of this Congress,
Meanwhile, Drassanes, with its station located at the bottom of the iconic La Rambla Boulevard, translates to shipyards.
Drassanes, it was the place where they used to do the boats. They travel around the Mediterranean. So when you go now to the Drassanes, you could see the building of the place where they used to build all these boats. And that after they would travel to the America or to many places, So it's a very important building.
The stories are endless, but if you want to find out more, we recommend reading Marta Torres' book, Barcelona Metro a Metro. Marta continues to work on a project to keep it up to date for possible future editions, as well as a website, and dreams of one day writing a similar book about the metro system of another city.
Thank you, Cillian, for bringing us that interview. I actually investigated buying a copy of Marta's book, and the first edition is a collector's item. It's quite pricey, so I might be getting it out of the library instead. And what other curiosities did you discover about the metro network?
Well, one thing that I saw that I had no idea about before was the L12. Again, this is one of the ferrocarrils, one of the FGC lines. This is only 2 stops long, as in it just goes from one to the other. It's a metro line that lasts only 600 meters in total. I found this fascinating. I found this amazing. How can this be the case? So it goes from Sarrià to Reina Elisenda, and it traces the path of an old urban rail line from the mid-1800s that was buried underground at one stage. And what's so interesting about this, and probably is the reason that it exists, is because it's mostly a school train. The area between Pedralbes and Sarrià, where it's located, is among the top 5 areas in all of Europe in school density. There are more than 15 schools in a 15-minute walk radius from the station, and this 600 metres is just very useful for the school run for a lot of kids and a lot of families.
Yes, I was going to say, if you're an adult, well, you just walk 600 metres, wouldn't you? But if you're hundreds of school children, it's obviously really useful to have a metro line. Their legs aren't up to the walk. And Cillian, we heard Marta Torres' stories about the metro, but I believe you've investigated some of your own stories about the stations.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were speaking earlier on about the ghost stations. This is probably one of the aspects of the metro station that probably most fascinates me. Long-time listeners will have heard that we did an episode on subterranean Barcelona a few years ago where we spoke about this, but how could you not speak about the ghost stations again in a podcast about the metro? So we've got a few ghost stations that have a lot of lore to them, shall we say. Ferran existed for 22 years on the L3 line, but it was only 100 metres away from Liceu. And when the L3 was extended, it was deemed too close to bother keeping open, essentially. And ultimately, who could compete against a stop right outside the temple of the bourgeoisie, right on the middle of La Rambla?
It's a beautiful station.
I love it as well. Correos also is one that I think is probably the most photographed ghost station. There's a lot of material that exists online and also on our website.
That's the old post office, right?
Exactly, yeah. This was located at the bottom of Via Laietana and was in operation between 1934 and 1972 until the L4 line was extended out to Barceloneta, and then it was deemed too close to that to bother keeping open. Additionally, this station only had 1 floor because the leaks of seawater during construction led engineers to think that shutting it down was the wisest, and therefore only a part of the facility remains today underground. But in that section, you can see a lot of Franco-era signs and posters on the walls, advertising of furniture stores, even political campaign posters as well. So it's like a time capsule underground, basically. Even if they wanted to keep Correos open, it would probably be impossible right now because the platforms was only 6 feet wide, which is difficult to imagine now existing in the 21st century.
Of course, with the speed of today's trains and the volume of people that use the metro, I think that would have been impractical and unsafe.
Most definitely, for sure. There's another one on Via Laietana, which is just a couple of stations down from Correos, which is Bank.
Oh, yes. Now, this rings a bell. Can you tell me about the Bank conspiracy theory?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, this is another kind of fascinating one. The Bank station never opened, it never existed, but some work was partially carried out underground, including a stairway that actually leads to nowhere. But as you touched upon it, the conspiracy theory, kind of years after the station was abandoned, An urban legend surrounding it started to spread that because it was located beneath the Bank of Spain, which moved to Via Laietana in the 1930s, some people said that bank was part of a secret plan for the metro company to send their revenues to the financial institution safely. This sounds fascinating. It sounds mysterious. Unfortunately, historians categorically rule it out.
It's a shame because it's such a good story.
Who knows? They would rule it out, of course. Maybe they're in on it.
And then wasn't there a story about Gaudí station not being able to tunnel through because the city walls were in the way?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Gaudí station located very near Sagrada Familia because they couldn't break through those old city walls. They kind of had to redesign the metro map. It was rendered just useless, pointless, too close to other stations to bother with.
So they dug a hole in the city walls and then couldn't actually open the station after all.
Yeah, one of those mistakes.
Now, not a ghost station, but a station with ghosts. I believe there's an urban legend surrounding Rocafort station.
Precisely. Rocafort has a reputation in this city. It has the biggest urban legend aura surrounding it because, unfortunately, in the 1960s, there was a series of suicides that happened in that station. But ever since then, you know, the myth has started to grow. Some metro station workers kind of refuse to work there late at night. It's the last shift that anybody wants to take because there have been some reports of some strange paranormal activity happening down there. Some metro surveillance workers have mentioned that they could see figures walking on the tracks late at night when the station was actually closed to the public. And this story even inspired a horror movie to be released earlier this very year called Estación Rocafort.
Wow, how spooky.
Heavy.
Spooky stuff. And moving from death to life, I believe a woman gave birth on the metro in 2022.
That's right. There was a woman called Cristina who was on her way to Hospital del Mar to give birth, but began to feel something on the way, decided to get off at Ciutadella, ask for help from a TMB staff member who prepared a space for her in the station's offices. Thankfully, there was also a medical professional who just happened to coincidentally be in the station at the same time, who then assisted in the birth of baby Angel.
I wonder if he'll have free train travel for life.
I think he probably deserves it.
And another particularity of travelling on the metro are the musicians who brighten up our commute, playing live music in different styles and sometimes with varying degrees of competence as well. I mean, I know I have my favourite, and it's always a breath of fresh air to hear a kind of familiar tune, which momentarily kind of lifts you out of the rat race. Our colleague Coralie Moreau met some of the metro artists and found out what it's like to play music in such an unusual venue.
Barcelona, Sants metro station. In between the two lines L5 and L3, people are rushing to switch lines and make their connection. But the sound of a guitar makes some stop. Hermilwitz, 69, has been playing music for more than 40 years.
En principio, yo estaba estudiante de una universidad de Georgia.
I was studying in a university in Georgia, and I started playing music very late. I was 21. Now I'm 69. But I started well, very well, and I arrived here in the year 2000. At first, I was in Valencia doing undeclared work, and I wasn't playing there. And then, in 2006, I arrived here and found the Music Society, AMUC.
Eso es sociedad de música. Se llama AMUC.
AMUC is an association for musicians playing in the street and in the metro of Barcelona. With the city, it organizes musicians' time slots and offers other protection. To be able to play, you need to pass a selection process held each year. For Mika Violin, 53, playing in the metro is an insurance to get a minimum amount of money.
When I finished university, I started traveling out of my country, which is Russia. And I started getting out of Russia, trying to play music just all around the world, first in Europe, on the street. And then I finished up in Spain, in Barcelona, particularly because, and I decided to stay here because they told me that I had an opportunity to get the papers. you know. Since that, I'm here in Barcelona playing on Metro because, well, it's not so many gigs, you know. I could get playing around, but well, so for to survive, I need to still stay on the street and on Metro playing. That's it.
Negativo no hay nada.
There is no downside. We have the possibility of earning something. And negative? How? No, I can't say that there is anything bad. If it was negative, I wouldn't have spent this much time here. I've been playing for almost 18 years.
18 años tocando.
Yes, certainly, it's a good thing for me because that way I can be sure, so I could come and play, you know, and nobody gonna chase me away like police or security, you know, whatever, anything. So, yeah, I think it's good. Yeah.
Playing in the metro regularly and safely allows them to pursue their passion for music. But it's not easy every day, which discourages some newcomers.
Tú tocas y si le gustan, te echan.
You play, and if they like it, they give you money. And many people have come, have left. Now again, in March, other people come, and we'll see if they will stay here. There are young people who are in a hurry, and what they imagine is not like this here. Here you have to play. The street is better to get something out, but the street, half of the year, you can't play because it's cold, it's raining. But what if that's not enough money? What are you going to do? You can't do anything. You have to keep playing. If that's not enough, you have to play more. There's no other way out.
Hay que tocar. Si no, no hay suficiente, hay que tocar más.
Street is a different thing, you know, it's more like a concert. But Metro, you play kind of in the corner, you know, being invisible man, you know, trying to attract attention and everything. And people passing by, you know, and they don't give a shit. So you just have to stay. I'd rather play, you know, well-paid concerts instead of being in Metro, but it's all right, you know, I'm satisfied.
Mika still dreams of playing more concerts, while Emil cherishes the comfort of playing inside and safely. Both ultimately enjoy being able to make money out of playing music, one way or another.
Eso me gusta. Me gusta mucho.
I love it. I love it so much. Without this, I can't live because I'm alone. And this helps me to carry on with my life. You never know, but without a guitar, I can't live. That's what it means.
Sin guitarra y yo no puedo con sin este. Y así es.
It's all right, you know, I'm satisfied, you know, because my ambition was to be a musician all my life. So actually I am a musician, and I am getting my living out of playing music. So I'm very much satisfied and not complaining at all.
Thank you, Coralie, for bringing us that report. Cillian, times are changing, and I'm sure that as well as growing geographically, the metro has had to adapt as the city evolves. What do you think the future will bring?
Well, the path is pretty clear. Barcelona is expanding, the suburbs are growing, and therefore the metro is growing with it. So by 2040, it's expected that there will be more than 200 stations running through more than 200 kilometres of rail network.
Wow, that's really extensive.
Exactly, yeah. Pretty much every line that we know is going to be expanded. The L1, for example, is going to be extended both north and south, north into Badalona, south into El Prat. L2 is getting an extension through Montjuic into the Zona Franca. Hospital Clinic, we reported on this earlier on in the year. The actual site of the hospital is going to move to the bottom of Diagonal by 2035, and this means that the L3 will extend into Esplugas to reach the new hospital site. As well as that, the L4 will grow into La Sagrera, the soon-to-be mega transport hub of Sant Andreu. And as well as that, obviously, the plans of the L9 and the L10 are to continue making them connect through the whole city, as right now, L9 and L10 are both divided into the north tranche and the south tranche. But the plan is to connect them through the whole city.
So that you don't have to get off and then get back on the same line.
That will be a problem of the past.
And the metro will be a metro of the future. Here's to another 100 years. That's almost all we have time for today. But before we go, it's time for our Catalan phrase of the week. Cillian, what do we have today?
We have a pretty simple one, pretty easy, but I would say essential if you're getting on the Barcelona metro, and that is Próxima estació.
Next station.
As simple as that. So if you're on the metro and you know that you need to get off somewhere, Barceloneta, Sagrada Familia, whatever it may be, what you will hear is Próxima estació. Barceloneta, something like that.
This week on Filling the Sink, we've been talking about Barcelona's metro as it celebrates 100 years of service. Thank you to Marta Torres and the metro musicians for taking the time to talk to us and share your stories. Thank you to Coralie Moreau for your reporting. And of course, thank you to Cillian Shields for joining me here in the studio.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts if you haven't done so already. Next Saturday, the 4th of January, we won't be publishing a new episode as we're taking a break for the Christmas holidays, but we'll be back in the new year with another exciting episode coming out on the 11th of January. On behalf of all the team here at Catalan News, I'm Beth Cohen, wishing you a great weekend and a very happy new year. Bon an now. Fins aviat. Adeu.